There's a restaurant that my family and I love to go to, and there's lots of reasons that we like it, but three come to my mind immediately. One is, after you go and put your name in, you're waiting, out in front of the restaurant, they have rocking chairs and checkerboards. That was good marketing. Whoever idea that was, they need a raise. So you can have family time, sit on the porch, you can visit. Number two, it's one of the few restaurants that I know of where they offer you three sides. You know, some places give you one, most places give you two. Around here it's rice and beans. And then this place gives you three. And on their vegetable list is macaroni and cheese and fried apples. This is the land flowing with milk and honey. Number three, on the table itself, they have a game for you to play called the triangle game. So if you know what this looks like, you've seen it before. So you have these little T's, and you have one space that's open, and you jump the T's one after the other, and you hop around trying to remove a T every time that you jump over it. And the goal is to end up with the least amount of T's as possible. So if you take all the T's away, here's the instructions for the game. Jump all but one. So you jump each T, remove it. Leave only one, you are a genius. Leave two, you're pretty smart. Leave three, and you're just plain dumb. But if you leave four or more, you're just plain ignoramus. Ignoramus. That's not a term we're familiar with. If you look that up on the Google, it says that means you are utterly ignorant. So when you play the triangle game, the goal is you do not want to have 4 pegs or more left over, or you are a ignoramus. But today we're going to talk about 4 T's that it's good for us to see in our life if we're going to follow the path towards obedience and stewardship. If you have your Bible, turn to 1 Chronicles. We're being in chapter 29 today, looking at 1 through 19. So last week we began this 1-month study through the month of October called To Whom Much Is Given, and we began in Exodus. We saw the Israelites had just escaped from Pharaoh in Egypt. They're heading out into the desert, and they are in search of the promised land. Moses goes up on the mountain with the Lord. He spends 40 days and 40 nights. He comes down, and he says, I have a message from the Lord to give to all the people. And they say, we are so ready. Tell us what it is. God has a plan for you. This is great news. What do we need to do? 2 things. Number 1, God needs you to take up an offering. And number 2, God needs you to have the right heart. They're going, okay, what's the offering for? We're going to build a tabernacle. And they're saying like a worship space, sanctuary, temple type thing. Yeah, we're going to build one so that we can worship the Lord. And it's going to be mobile, so we'll take it with us wherever we go. And the Israelites say, well, you know, that sounds great. But we are newly freed slaves in the middle of the desert. So where exactly are we supposed to get all these offerings to bring in? Because God asked for 14 specific things: gold, silver, bronze, jewels, hides, tans, linens, all these things. And the beauty of the message last week was that everything God asked them for, He had already provided, and they had it in their means. And so the people began to give, and they gave, to the point to where they had to tell them to stop giving, because it was too much stuff. Just stop bringing things. We already have more than we need. So we saw that God gives us a vision. This is what we're going to do. And with every vision, God makes provision. But then we make the decision of whether or not we're going to follow Him in obedience. So today, 4 T's the Israelites experienced after they reached the promised land. Number 1, we see the task. So the Israelites, they built the tabernacle. If you've never seen a picture, it may look something like this. So the tabernacle was a pretty big structure. It had the outer walls. It would have the outer court. It would have the inner court. This area here would be the inner sanctum. So this would be the Holy of Holies. This would be the veil. Out here they would have places for sacrifice, for washing. On the inside they would have the altar of incense. They would have the table of bread. Then past the veil, they would have the Ark of the Covenant, which would be the Holy of Holies. And so that would be the place that people would meet with God. So in the Old Testament, it was God with us. In the New Testament, it is God in us. So when Jesus came to die, He made a way for the Holy Spirit to live within us. So God is with us everywhere we go. In the Old Testament, God had a manifest presence, and so they would meet with Him there at this place. So wherever they were at, they would take the tabernacle, they would take it with them, they would have places for offerings, for sacrifice, and they would have this inner sanctums where they could go and they could meet with the presence of God. David comes along, 500 years later. So this is kind of the path and the journey of how they got there. They go into the promised land after 40 years. We have the days of Joshua. We have the days of Judges. King Saul comes along, and then a shepherd boy named David. And God gives him a task, and he gives him a vision. And he says, I have things in my life that are 5 years old, that are pretty tattered. The tabernacle was 500 years old, and so it was getting worn down. And he says, we're not moving anywhere. We're in the promised land. We need to build a permanent temple right here in the city, in the capital, in Jerusalem. And so David begins this process of preparing to build the temple. 1 Chronicles 29, this verse 1. And David the king, he said to all the assembly, Solomon my son, whom alone God has chosen, he is young and inexperienced. The work is great, for the palace will not be for man, but will be for the Lord God. So he calls out to the assembly. All the people are together. And King David stands up and says, God has given me this vision that we're going to build this temple, and it's going to be the greatest thing that we've ever seen in this world. And it's not for us, but it's for the Lord. And my son Solomon, he's going to be the one that built it. God has chosen him as the next king. And God didn't choose him because he's an architect. God didn't choose him because he's an engineer. Truth is, Solomon's just a boy. He's just a lad. He's inexperienced. He has no idea how to do any of these things. But I know that it's God's plan for him to build that, and so I trust him. And the task, it will not be easy. It will be challenging. But this place is not for us. It's going to be for the Lord. And King David knew that he would never see this temple. It was for future generations. And so when I think about this, I think about the vision. And so as we begin to pray and to talk and get ready for Commitment Sunday, we've been praying and talking about this new campus for almost 20 years as a church. And so often we become so focused on the building and the concrete, and we become so possessive and so selfish sometimes, saying, this is our church, and it's going to be our place. And the truth is that we're not building this for us. We're not saying, man, this new campus is for me because I'm putting in a Chick-fil-A on one side, Starbucks on the other side, Lazy Boy recliners all the way around the altar. It's not for us. It's for the Lord. So David says, we're going to build this temple, but it's not for us to be able to say, look at the temple that we built. Man, that place is something else. People will talk about this forever, about what a great place that we built for us. He says, it's a great vision, but it's a really great task because this is not going to be like anything else because it's not for us. This is for the Lord, so we want it to be the very best. And David knew that he'd never even see this place. But he was willing to follow the vision. He was willing to invest, and he was willing to work towards it for his son and for the next generation. So this is not just a campus, it's for us, but it's for those who will come after us as well. I have never built or been a part of a church building process of the vastness of this. I've seen couples almost in their relationship over building a house together. Super stressful. A lot of decisions, a lot of things go wrong. That's a 2,500 square foot home. This is a 30,000 square foot building. It's not going to be an easy process. There's going to be challenges, there's going to be shortcomings, there's going to be fallbacks. But I don't ever remember a time in the Lord where he gives us a vision or a task and it was really easy. Because if it was easy, we wouldn't need him. We could do it on our own. But when God gives us a God-sized task, we have to trust in him to provide for it. And David had the faith that he knew that he would see. And so we have this great task before us as a church that we're going to build this building not for us, but we're going to build it for the Lord. But maybe today you walked in here and God has a task just for you. And maybe you've been looking and maybe you've been searching. God, what is my purpose? And what plan do you have for me? What do you want me to do with my life to make a difference? And are you sure you want me to do it? Because there's a lot of people I can think of that'd be much better at this. And I'm not really sure that I'm prepared to do this. I'll share with you, Brianna Witowski is not a public speaker. She did not say, hey, could I please stand up before the church and say something? It was more like, Brianna, what would we have to do to get you to get up there and speak? But more people were blessed today in this church by what she said than she'll ever know. God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. And so God says, I have a very specific task for you in this life, and you may feel very inadequate. You may feel like you cannot do it, and you have no idea what's going to happen. And truth be known, you may not even see the purpose in it, because it may not even be for you. Maybe God's calling you to do something specific, and it's for somebody else, because that's how God works and God blesses. But maybe here's what you need to hear today. Whatever task God has called you to, He's not calling you to do it alone. Because when God gives a task, then God builds a team. That's our second T. So we have a task, but then we have a team. We have a great staff here at our church. I love every staff member and what they bring to our church and their gifts and their abilities. Just like you, though, we're busy. We have families and we have lives, and a lot of times we only see each other passing in the hallways or at staff meeting or here at church. So we try to be intentional, and we want to be more intentional in the future about spending time together outside these walls. So a few weeks ago, we had a team staff building day. And so in my mind, what that looks like is all of us going to like a ropes course, and standing out in the middle of this high wire, holding each other's hands, learning to trust each other, and taking some kind of like faith fall where we catch each other. Or I see us going into a room and we have 10,000 popsicle sticks and we have to build a bridge that we can all walk across. And we may do those things one day. But we want to do something that, communicates teamwork. So we did an escape room. So if you've never done an escape room, they stick you in this room, and some are big, some are small, but they lock you inside. They put this really intimidating clock up on the wall that's counting down from an hour, and you have a goal or a task. There's a treasure you need to find. There's a puzzle you need to solve. There's probably 30, 40, or 50 things you have to solve in all these escape rooms to get out. It may be a combination lock. It may be a puzzle. You may have to smell certain things and put them in the right order. And so at first when we start, we have 8 or 10 people in there from our staff. Everybody's doing something different. Somebody's over here trying to read a clue. Somebody's over here picking up rugs. Somebody's looking behind the pictures on the wall. Somebody is using a black light trying to find things. Everybody has a different task. And whenever somebody would find something useful, we just called out, does this mean anything to anybody? And somebody like, oh, I know what that means. And so they go and they work together. And as you get closer to the end, everybody starts to come together more and more because you only have a few coups left, and everybody gets to use their gift, they get to use their abilities. So here's a picture of our staff doing an escape room. And so what I love about this is you can see everybody here is different, from their age to where they came from, their education, their experience, what they're wearing, totally different, which is what makes an escape room beautiful because it takes what everybody can do to get out of that room. If I was in there by myself, I'm not getting out. I can't figure out all those clues. I don't have the time or the skills to get all those things done. But when we all work together, because this person's really good at solving puzzles. This one's really good with numbers. This one's really good at looking for things that are out of place. This one's really good at finding hidden things. This one's really good at, reading this clue. Everybody comes together, and then we're able to work together, and we're better. So the picture of the church is that we are a body, and we're all pretty familiar with bodies. And I use my hands a lot. I use it to pick things up. I use it to grab, to move, to throw, to catch. But what if I was only hands? See, my hands are very useful, but my hands can't see, and my hands can't smell. My hands can't hear. My hands can't breathe. My hands can't pump blood. They can't do any of those things by themselves. So they're useful tools, but only as long as they're connected to the rest of the body. And so if the church is only hands, it'll have some things it's good at, but not nearly as many as if it's a complete body. And so God calls us to be a team, and we all have different gifts and we all have different abilities. And David had the vision. This is what the Lord wants to build this temple. I know it full well, but he also saw that he couldn't do it by himself. And so God builds a team around him. Verse 2. So I have provided for the house of my God, so far as I was able, the gold for the gold things, the silver for the silver for the things of silver, the bronze for the things of bronze, the iron for the things of iron, the wood for the things of wood, besides great quantities of onyx and stones for setting, antimony, colored stones, all sorts of precious stones and marble. Moreover, in addition to all that I have provided for the holy house, I have a treasure of my own of gold and silver, and because of my devotion to the house of my God, I will give it to the house of my God. 3,000 talents of gold, and it's the gold of Ophir, 7,000 talents of refined silver for overlaying the walls of the house, for all the work to be done by the craftsmen, gold for the things of gold, silver for the things of silver. Who then will offer willingly, consecrating himself today in the house of the Lord? So David, possibly the richest man in the world at this time, says, God's given me this vision, and it's not for me to enjoy. I'm not even going to get to see this temple. But I believe in it so much that I want to give anything and everything that I can to make sure that the Lord's will happens. And I tried to put numbers to this because 3,000 talents of gold, that doesn't really mean a lot to my mind because I'm not sure how much a talent is. And so if you start doing the numbers, I try to get on my calculator on my phone and figure out just gold. So last week we talked about the tabernacle, and we thought, it's just a big tent. Could it really be worth that much? And there was over $50 million worth of gold in the tabernacle. And so now this is the temple, which makes the tabernacle look kind of shabby. You know how much gold David gave? Just David, by himself, just the gold. About $4 billion. That's a B, billion. $4 billion worth of gold himself. But he knew even if he gave everything that he had, it wasn't enough for this temple. Verse 6. Then the leaders of the fathers' houses, they made their free will offerings, as did also the leaders of the tribes, the commanders of the thousands and the hundreds, and the officers over the king's work. They gave for the service of the house of God 5,000 talents and 10,000 derricks of gold, 10,000 talents of silver, 18,000 talents of bronze, 100,000 talents of iron. And whoever had precious stones, they gave them to the treasury of the house of the Lord in the care of Jehiel the Gershonite. Then the people cried? No, the people hurt. Surely the people mourned because of all they just gave away. No, the people rejoiced because they had given under pressure. No, because they were only giving by force. No, because they gave willingly. For with a whole heart they had offered freely to the Lord. David the king also rejoiced greatly. So 500 years ago, Moses comes down off the mountain and says, listen, God wants us to build this tabernacle, and he's already provided what we need. We just need you to bring it freely. And the people began to bring and to bring and to bring to the point where he said, listen, you've brought too much. We don't need any more. And here Moses says, David says, I've given everything that I can, but we need more. Who believes in this vision and who will give? And the people brought 187 tons of gold, 375 tons of silver, 675 tons of bronze, and 3,750 tons of iron. Nobody could give as much as David could because he had more than all the rest of them. But he didn't ask for equal gifts. He asked for equal sacrifice. Who's willing to give what the Lord has called them to give? And it's not by force. It's not by coercion. It's not under guilt. It's not under pressure. But it's a free will gift with a whole heart. Folks, I've been in the Baptist church my whole life. Since before I was born or even thought about, I was already there. My grandpa was my pastor growing up. It's all that I know. And in the church, there are some topics that are very uncomfortable for people. And if I talk about prayer, no problemo. Talk about missions, worship, discipleship, anything like that, people are all in. But as soon as you start talking about money and giving, people go, I knew I shouldn't have went to church today. I knew it from the moment that I woke up. I wish they would put on the line what they're going to preach about that next so I can stay home, because it just makes people feel uncomfortable. And I think it's because we just don't understand the picture of stewardship and what it really means. So here's 3 things the Lord told me to share with you today about this topic of giving. I've known a lot of people in my life, and I've heard a lot of stories. I've never heard anyone in my life say, there was a time when God called me to give something to him, and I did. And that was the worst decision I've ever made in my life. I've never heard that. Not, but there was that one time or that one person. Never. 0 times. And I've never met a person who has ever said, I gave to God what he asked me to give, and that was the wrong decision. Because every time that we do that, he says we'll have joy when we give with a whole heart. Not one time have I ever seen regret. Stewardship is not just about money. When we think about giving, that's where we go to, pocketbook. But stewardship means that in Psalms 24, it says, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. So that means that absolutely everything in this life is God's. It's not yours. It's not mine. It's His. And so we understand that it doesn't hurt when He asks us to only give back to Him what He has given to us, because that means every second is His, every breath is His, every skill we have, every act that we take, every word that we say, every dollar in our bank account, every possession that we own, it's all His. I wonder who here today has a great task ahead of them. Something that God wants you to do, but you are just so unsure about it because you feel so alone. And maybe today God reminds you that you are never alone. If you look around this room, it's filled with family who will walk through the valley of the shadow of death with you. No matter what you're going through, you have a team. But if we're going to fulfill the task that God has, we have to understand that it's not ours. Everything is God's. And so here's the truth. Number 3, verse 10. Therefore David blessed the Lord in the presence of the assembly. And David said, blessed are you, O Lord, the God of Israel, our Father, forever and ever. Yours, O Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the victory and the majesty. For all that is in the heavens and in the earth is yours. Yours is the kingdom, O Lord, and you are exalted as head above all. Both riches and honor, they come from you. You rule over all. In your hand are power and might. In your hand it is to make great and to give strength to all. And now we thank you, our God, and we praise your glorious name. David is standing by, and the people begin to bring their gifts and their offerings one by one, and he's overwhelmed. And he gives praise to the Lord, verse 14. But who am I, and what is my people, that we should be able thus to offer willingly? For all things come from you, and of your own have we given you. For we are strangers before you and sojourners, as all our fathers were. Our days on the earth are like a shadow. There's no abiding. O Lord our God, all this abundance that we have provided for the building you a house for your holy name, it comes from your hand and is all your own. Lord, who am I and who are we as a people to even be able to give all of this back to you? The Israelites provide all the gold and the silver and the bronze, all those things for the tabernacle, but Lord, the truth is that it wasn't even theirs in the first place. And so this is what the picture of stewardship looks like. This is a Bible. So today we're going to say that this is my Bible. And I'm going to give this Bible to Miss Renee, and I'm going to ask her to hold on to it for me. Miss Renee, if you'll take care of that Bible for me. But you know what? I really think that Dion needs that Bible, probably more than Miss Renee. So I'm going to ask Miss Renee if you'd give that Bible to Dion. Miss Renee, was that hard for you to give that to Dion? See, it wasn't hard because it wasn't Miss Renee's Bible in the first place. It was mine. She was just a caretaker. And so if I would take this Bible and I would say, here, John, this is my Bible. If you'll hold on to that for me for a while. John says, no problem. And he keeps it. And maybe John reads it. He may even put some notes in it. But then I say, hey, John, I need that Bible back. Can I have it back? Was that hard? No, it wasn't hard. Because it wasn't his Bible. It was mine. If somebody has you keep something for them, you have the understanding that it's not yours in the first place. But here's the difference. If it's not a Bible, or if it's not a shirt, or if it's not a bicycle or a box of storage, what if I were to give you $10,000 in $100 bills? And you put those in your hand, Miss Renee or John. And all of a sudden you start petting those dollars, and you start loving those dollars, and you start squeezing those dollars, and you start saving those dollars, and you start spending those dollars. And I say, hey, Miss Renee, I really think that I need you to give those dollars to Dion. That's a bad idea. There ain't nothing good he going to do with those dollars. They are much better right here in my hand. I will keep these dollars for you because Benjamins are my friend. Or if I would say, hey, John, I know I gave you that 10 grand earlier, but I need you to give that back to me. No can do, Padre. This would be my $10,000. Now you gave it to me, and now I'm keeping it. You never said there was no take backs. You never said anything like that. So I am keeping this $10,000 because it makes me feel good inside. See, we have a total understanding of stewardship when it comes to things in this life. And we say, okay, well, listen, my friend brought this car over to me. He asked me to keep it in my garage. He told me I could use it. I could drive it, no problem. But one day he's going to ask for it back, and that shouldn't hurt me because it's not my car. It's his. And everything we have is the Lord's. Our time, our talents, our abilities, our finances, our possessions. Everything is His. We're caretakers. And so if we'd stop loving those things more than we love the Lord, it wouldn't hurt so bad when He asks us to give them back to Him or give them to somebody else. The picture of stewardship is that God gives us all that we have. And when God asks us for some of it or for all of it, we say, sure. And so David says, Lord, everybody's making a big deal about this. We just brought 300 tons of gold to build this temple. And everybody's pointing the finger going, look at those people. Look what they did. They are so great and so wonderful. Look at the sacrifices they made. And David says, who am I and who are we? Because all that we did was give to God what He gave to us. We didn't create the gold. We didn't even earn the gold. He gave it to us. We're just giving it back to Him. So David says, Lord, I need you to show me the truth. Is there any glory that we are trying to receive from this? Do we really understand that everything is yours? Where is our treasure in this life? Matthew 6:19 says, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth or rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And so often we see that it's with our physical possessions that we grab on tight and we say, I'm not letting go of this because this is mine. Lord, if you want the cans of asparagus in the pantry, those are yours. I'll give them to anybody. God, if you want that broke down car that's out in the pasture that hadn't run in 45 years, it's yours. I will take it wherever you want it to go. But don't touch the things that are mine, Lord. And God going, what exactly do you think is yours? It's all His. Where's our heart and where's our treasure? So the truth opens our eyes to number 4, the test. Verse 17. I know, my God, that you test the heart and have pleasure in uprightness. In the uprightness of my heart, I have freely offered all these things, and now I have seen your people who are present here offering freely and joyously to you. O Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, our fathers, keep forever such purposes and thoughts in the hearts of your people and direct their hearts towards you. Lord, grant to Solomon, my son, a whole heart, that he may keep your commandments, your testimonies, and your statutes, performing all that he may build the palace for which I have made provision. Lord, test my heart. I'm not doing this for attention. I'm not doing this for my namesake. I'm not doing this so that one day they'll say, oh, look what David did and how much did he give. Lord, I'm just doing this because I love you. I'm only doing this because I want to bring you honor and I want to bring you glory. So I freely give these things with joy, not with regret. And your people are doing the same. And God, just pray that you'll give my son a whole heart, that he'll love you and he'll follow you to the very end of days, and that he will build your temple. I wonder how many times does God bring us to a place, maybe a situation where we have to ask ourselves, Lord, if you were to test my heart today, is it in the right place? Am I really living? Am I really loving? Am I really serving? How many times does he bring us to a place where we have to ask ourselves the question, do I really understand how short life really is? And how little time that we have to make a difference for the kingdom? I wonder, when is the last time that you asked God to really test your heart? I went to a pastor friend's office a few months ago, When I walked in, I saw something I'd never seen on this wall, and it was a sword, and it was so beautiful. So I just stood there for a while going, oh! I said, where'd you get this from? He said, I don't know. Somebody gave it to me. So I went and I looked it up, and if you're unaware, Amazon has everything. And so his sword looked very similar to this. And so it was of the Lord's will that I purchased this sword, because this is called the Sword of Solomon. And so it has the sign, the Star of David on top for his father. It has the Ark of the Covenant from the Holy of Holies. It has the cherubim on each side, and then of course it looks like it's covered in gold. And so if you know the story of Solomon, the wisest man to have ever lived, and the claim to fame for Solomon is often the story of the two women who came with one child, and they both said they were the mother. And Solomon says, well, this is how we'll determine who the mother is. We'll cut the baby in half. Each can have a half. And the true mother says, don't harm the child. Just give it to the other lady. He said, this is the mother. And so this is supposed to be a sign, a replica of the sword that Solomon was going to use. And so to me, this is a sign of wisdom. And we say that in this life, we have many great tasks that God has given us. And so as a church, we have a task that we're going to build this new temple, this tabernacle, this campus. It's not for us, it's for him. And in your life, you have a task. You have a purpose and you have a plan that God has something set you aside for specifically. And when you see what it is and God shows you, you're going to have fear. And you're going to be uncertain. And you're going to say, God, can I really do this? And do you sure that you want me to do it? And God's going to say yes. But you don't need to do it alone. So he's going to give you a team, a church, a family, friends who will hold you accountable, encourage you, lift you up, and walk beside you so that you will not be alone, because we are better together. You see, we need each other, and we have to stand together. We must be obedient. We have to look into the mirror and ask God to test our hearts. And when we're serving, when we're loving, when we're following, and when we're giving, we have to ask ourselves, Lord, is this for your glory, or is this for mine?